What if one of the coins sitting in your drawer right now could be worth hundreds or potentially even thousands of dollars? Most Americans see an old quarter, penny, dime or dollar and think, it's just pocket change. But collectors know something different. The age of a coin is only the beginning. The real mystery can be hidden in the date, mint mark, condition, variety, or even a tiny minting error that most people would never notice. And today, we're going through 10 different American coins, starting with a Washington quarter and ending with an Eisenhower dollar. Some are old, some are surprisingly modern. And one of these coins has a history that reaches back more than 100 years. So don't skip ahead because the coin that looks the most ordinary might be the one you should investigate first. And remember, never assume an old coin is valuable just because of its age. Check the details. Let's begin. First up is the Washington quarter, one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, created to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. That means some Washington quarters can now be more than 90 years old. And here's where things get interesting. Millions of Washington quarters were produced, so an ordinary example usually isn't a fortune. But collectors look much more closely at the date, mint mark, condition and unusual varieties or errors. A common circulated quarter may be worth only face value or a small premium. But scarce dates, major errors, or exceptionally high-grade examples can reach hundreds of dollars, and in extraordinary cases, much more. So when you're looking at your Washington quarter, don't just look at Washington's portrait. Flip it over. Check the date. Look for the mint mark. And inspect the coin carefully for anything unusual. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary quarter and a collector's prize can be incredibly small. And we're just getting started. Next comes one of America's most famous old coins, the Lincoln Wheat Penny. If you have one of these, you're holding a small piece of American history. The wheat cent was produced from 1909 through 1958, meaning the oldest examples are now more than 115 years old. And that's a lot of history for a coin that originally represented just 1 cent. The reverse features 2 wheat ears, which is where the nickname wheat penny comes from. But here's the important part. Not every wheat penny is valuable. Some are worth only a few cents or a few dollars, while scarce dates, mint errors, varieties and high-grade examples can become considerably more valuable. Depending on the exact coin, condition and rarity, desirable wheat pennies can range from tens or hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars, with exceptional rarities reaching far beyond that. So if you find an old wheat penny, don't throw it into a jar and forget about it. Look at the date first. Then check the mint mark. Because one tiny letter can completely change the story. And our next coin takes us even deeper into American history. Now we're moving to one of the most beautiful classic American coins, the Mercury dime. Despite its popular nickname, the figure on the coin is actually Winged Liberty, not the Roman god Mercury. These dimes were produced from 1916 through 1945. That means the oldest examples are now more than 110 years old. And collectors absolutely love them. The coin's design, silver composition, age and historical importance make it a favorite among American numismatists. But once again, the date matters. Certain dates and mint marks are significantly scarcer than others, and condition can make an enormous difference. An ordinary circulated Mercury dime might be worth a modest premium, while scarce dates and exceptional examples can reach hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So if you've got one of these sitting in an old collection, don't judge it by its face value. A 10-cent coin can carry more history and potentially more collector value than you might expect. And now we're moving forward in time to another famous American dime. This is the Roosevelt dime, introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And here's something fascinating. The Roosevelt dime is still being produced today, so unlike the Mercury dime, you could potentially find one in your pocket change. But older Roosevelt dimes can become especially interesting to collectors. Many early examples were made from 90% silver, before the U.S. Mint transitioned to the copper-nickel composition used for regular modern dimes. That means some old Roosevelt dimes have value beyond their face value simply because of their silver content. But collectors also search for scarce dates, mint marks, high-grade specimens, and errors. Depending on the specific date and characteristics, a Roosevelt dime might be worth only a small premium or potentially hundreds or even thousands of dollars in exceptional cases. So don't automatically dismiss an old dime. Check the date, check the mint mark, and especially if it's an older example, find out exactly what you're holding. Because we're about to move to a coin that is much older and much more unusual. Now we arrive at the 1928 Buffalo nickel. Look closely at this coin. On the front is the famous Native American portrait, while the reverse features the powerful American bison. The Buffalo nickel was produced from 1913 through 1938, so a 1928 example is now approaching 100 years old. And that age alone makes it fascinating. But collectors don't simply ask how old is it. They ask, how rare is this particular date and mint combination? They also examine the coin's condition. A heavily worn Buffalo nickel can be difficult to identify because the high points of the design wore down quickly. That's why a well-preserved example can be especially desirable. Depending on the exact mint mark and condition, a 1928 Buffalo nickel can range from a modest collector premium to hundreds of dollars or more for particularly desirable examples. So if you own one, don't clean it, don't polish it, and don't assume it's worthless because it looks old and worn. Because our next Buffalo nickel is even older. And here it is, the 1921 Buffalo nickel. This coin takes us back more than a century. Think about that. When this coin was produced, the United States was living through a completely different era. Cars were becoming more common, radio was growing rapidly, and the country was entering the 1920s. And somehow this little piece of metal survived all the way to today. But again, there's a major lesson for collectors. Age does not automatically equal rarity. The exact mint mark, condition, strike quality, and variety are extremely important. Some Buffalo nickels can be relatively affordable, while scarce varieties and exceptional condition pieces can command hundreds or potentially thousands of dollars. And there's another challenge with Buffalo nickels. The date and mint mark can be heavily worn. So if your 1921 coin is difficult to read, don't immediately give up. Use proper lighting and magnification. Take a close look. Because sometimes the most important information on an old coin is hiding in the smallest details. And now we're leaving the classic nickel era and jumping to the fascinating world of dollar coins. Next is the Sacagawea dollar, first released in 2000. At first glance, this might seem like a modern coin that couldn't possibly be worth much. But that's exactly why collectors pay attention. The coin features Sacagawea on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, and the design became one of America's best-known modern dollar coins. Most Sacagawea dollars are not rare fortunes. However, certain dates, special issues, varieties, and minting errors can make particular examples significantly more desirable. And some unusual varieties and errors have brought hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the exact characteristics and condition. So if you have a Sacagawea dollar, don't just spend it because it's only $1. Look closely at the date. Look for the mint mark. Examine the lettering and surfaces. And if something appears dramatically different from a normal example, that's when you should stop and investigate. Because sometimes the biggest surprise isn't an ancient coin. It's a coin that looks almost brand new. Now let's talk about another famous American dollar, the Susan B. Anthony dollar. This coin was introduced in 1979, making the earliest examples more than 45 years old. It honors Susan B. Anthony, a major figure in the American women's suffrage movement. The coin is smaller than traditional large dollar coins, which helped make it convenient but also caused some confusion with quarters. Today, most Susan B. Anthony dollars are not worth huge amounts. But collectors search for specific mintages, proof issues, varieties, errors, and high-grade examples. Some unusual specimens can bring hundreds of dollars or more, while truly exceptional or rare varieties can command considerably higher prices. So if you have Susan B. Anthony dollars stored away, don't judge them only by the number printed on the coin. Check the year. Check the mint mark. And if you have multiple examples, compare them carefully, because the difference between two coins that look almost identical can sometimes be surprisingly important. And now we're moving to one of America's most famous half-dollar coins. This is the Kennedy half-dollar, first issued in 1964. Following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the coin immediately became an important piece of American history. And here's something many people forget. The earliest Kennedy half-dollars were made with a high silver content. That gives certain older examples value beyond their 50-cent face value. The series continued for decades, and collectors now examine Kennedy half-dollars for silver content, dates, mint marks, proof issues, errors, varieties, and condition. Some coins may be worth only a small premium, while particularly desirable examples can reach hundreds or potentially thousands of dollars. So if you have an old Kennedy half-dollar sitting in a drawer, don't spend it before checking it. Look at the year. Check the mint mark. And if it's an early issue, investigate its composition. Because sometimes a 50-cent piece isn't really just 50 cents. And we've reached our final coin. Our final coin is the Eisenhower dollar. This large American dollar was introduced in 1971 and honors President Dwight D. Eisenhower, and there's something particularly interesting about this series. Some Eisenhower dollars were made with a silver composition, while many others were struck in copper nickel. That distinction can make a major difference when determining what you've got. Collectors also look for specific dates, mint marks, proof varieties, errors, and exceptional condition. A common Eisenhower dollar might be worth only a modest premium, while collectible silver issues and rare varieties can reach hundreds of dollars, with exceptional and genuinely scarce examples potentially reaching thousands. So if you have an Eisenhower dollar, don't simply look at the large $1 denomination. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark, and determine whether it is a regular copper-nickel issue or one of the silver versions. Because this final coin proves the biggest lesson of today's video. Face value doesn't always tell the whole story. So there you have it, 10 American coins. From the Washington quarter and Lincoln wheat penny all the way to the Eisenhower dollar. And if you've been watching closely, you probably noticed something important. There isn't one magic rule that says, old coin equals valuable coin. The real story is in the details. The date, the mint mark, the condition, the composition, the variety, and sometimes a tiny minting error. That's why you should never clean an old coin before having it properly examined. Cleaning can actually damage collector value. And remember, the dollar amounts we discussed are potential values for particular rare, high-grade, or error examples, not guaranteed prices for every coin of the same type. If you have old American coins at home, take them out. Look at them carefully, compare the dates. And if something looks unusual, investigate before spending it. If you enjoyed this coin hunt, subscribe to Million Coins, turn on the notification bell, and stay with us for the next treasure hiding in American pocket change, because the next valuable coin might not be in a museum. It could be sitting in your own collection.